get it going again with Austin Armstrong. And Will, of course, everybody wants to know, even dating back to Todd Grantham, dating back to Patrick Toney last year, what can the Gators do to get better on third down? That's just going to be the bugaboo of this defense. That's going to be the question that is asked until we actually see something done there, till we actually see it turn around. We talk about bad defense, and usually that is the first marker people will point to is third down defense. But he also goes into it, and he was asked about something the Gators did well last year, and that's creating turnovers.
Well, I think there's some layers to that, Edgar. I think one, the key to being good on third down is being good on first and second down. One of the hardest things to do in football for offenses is in known passing situations, which is usually like 3rd and 6 plus, to drop back, block people, and complete a pass. It really takes an offense, 11 people working on one accord to do that. It's pretty significant. And then defensively, you've got to create those situations on first and second down, whether you're in manageable situations of defense where you have the advantage. Calling defense now on 3rd and 4 is really, really hard, especially when you get to the plus side of the field where it's really like 2nd and 4 because the analytics, people go for it on 4th down, right? So we really spend a lot of time of being good on first and second down where we create opportunities on third down for us to be successful. And then with that, using the players that we have and their skill sets in which we believe we have some guys to affect the quarterback with pre-snap disguise, post-snap execution, and the ability to affect him that puts us in those favorable situations. Relative to that, we quality control everything. We watch it. But I think a lot of it goes to, you got some unique players in this league as well on third down. You can rush and cover, but if you can't control the quarterback and the guy takes off scrambling, you got an issue, right? Well, you can blitz and pressure. Well, if you can't cover them or get to them, you got an issue, right? So I think we've really emphasized that, and then try to create a tremendous amount of urgency that it's a privilege to play on third down here. We don't get a participation trophy on third down. You know what I mean? We got to get 11 guys out there that can execute inside the framework of our scheme and have the right mindset of approach of that it's a privilege to be out there on it. Let's make it happen. Let's execute.
Well, from Broadway Gainesville, one of the strengths last year on defense was number of takeaways. How much do you see that trend continuing, and how much is that going to be emphasizing?
Yeah, you always emphasize it. I've been everywhere I've been, we've spent a tremendous amount of lip service and action relative to creating takeaways. And I've been places that we've been really good on defense and we ain't created any takeaways. I've been places that we have not been good on defense at times or not what we aspired to be and created a bunch of takeaways. There's a lot of layers to that. I think it starts with affecting the quarterback, exposing ball security of people on offense. You have to, emphasize that daily. Each time in practice, hey, it's great to show, in the unit meeting, hey, we forced a fumble here or we intercepted it, right? But was that a mistake by the offense or a good play by us? And there's times in which we don't knock the ball out or intercept the ball when there's an opportunity for us to expose the ball carrier. And by doing that daily in practice, that helps our entire team. You know what I mean? If the running back's here loose with the ball, we've got to expose that, because if we don't expose it, it's going to show up in the game. And we've got to, and then the urgency with it of when you get your hands on the ball, you've got to take it away. That's why it's a takeaway, not a turnover.
There you go. Austin Armstrong explaining third down defense and turnovers. And Will, one part before we get into all these stats, I'm glad he said stats don't tell the whole story, because, as he was basically saying, I've been a part of teams that have all these stats and it doesn't amount to anything, and vice versa. Look at Georgia. Georgia has, I won't necessarily say trouble getting to the quarterback, but Kirby has mentioned probably the last 2 years he'd love to get to the quarterback more, but they're not. Is it really affecting their defense? Not really. No, they're still the nation's best defense, but he'd like to have that bullet in the chamber. We go to our own defense. Will, 18 and 19, Florida's leading the country in sacks, or leading the SEC in sacks, getting sacks left and right, but couldn't get them in big games. Didn't really amount to, a great defense. You were just getting a lot of sacks. You couldn't really take advantage because third down was still an issue. But hey, those sack numbers were up, but hey, it wasn't correlating. So as Austin Armstrong says right there, stats don't tell the whole story there. So third down defense will. I'll go back to I still have it from when he was hired, and Austin Armstrong, and maybe why we should be a little optimistic that he can turn it around. But well, you go back to a year ago, Florida ranked number 10 in the SEC in sacks with 23. Scoring defense was number 10 also, 28.8 points per game. Number 11 in passing defense, 236 yards a game, basically. Number 12 in rushing defense, 175 yards a game. Number 12 in total defense, 411 yards a game. Number 13 in opponent first downs, basically 23 a game. And dead last in opponent third down conversion were the Florida Gators in the SEC last year. I mean, it didn't matter. Todd Grantham wasn't on the sideline. It was still an issue under Patrick Toney. Of course, Austin Armstrong going to have to come in and really, really fix that issue as well. And why? Maybe. Can he do it? Well, if you go look at the improvement that he brought to Southern Miss as a defensive coordinator, 2020 was the last year without him. He comes in 2021, and you see improvement right away, right there on third down. 50% in 2020, his first year, all the way down to 39.6, about a 10% difference, and then even lower there in 2022. They were one of the worst defenses in the country, Southern Miss was, in 2020, in giving up third down. They were ranked 119th in the country. In 2021, they were ranked 69th, and then another raise in 2022 when Austin Armstrong was the defensive coordinator. So in a 2-year jump, all the way from 119th all the way up to 54th there on third down. But you see the improvement that he brought across the board right there at Southern Miss, getting better. Some of them were immediate. Some took a little bit longer as far as like points per game goes, yards per game where it was an improvement, but a dip in his last year there. Not a lot of talent there at Southern Miss. One reason, he was brought there, leaves, gets a promotion there to go to Alabama, ends up at Florida. But third down defense, you saw the immediate improvement that he brought in right there at Southern Miss.
Yeah, it's interesting you talked about not looking at the stats. I think it's a question of, are you looking at the right stats? And the thing that I would say is that yes, Georgia, I actually had an article in our preseason magazine about this, which was, it's not necessarily to me that Georgia's getting to the quarterback. It's that they were the best team in the country or they were 4th overall yards per rush allowed, and they had a negative expected points added on rushing plays. And so when you hear Austin Armstrong say, look, you win third down on first down and second down, that's what Georgia was doing. Georgia was putting guys in 3rd and 12. And hey, maybe they're not getting to the quarterback, but how often do you convert 3rd and 12 even if you don't get to the quarterback? It's just not a proposition that you want to be in as an offense. And so the defense has a major advantage. And so this is why I go back to those guys up front, is that's where it all starts. If it's 2nd and 5 and then 3rd and 2, and that's what you're doing all year long, you're really going to struggle. And look, every once in a while you will give up a 3rd and 12. The question is, the 2 3rd and 12s you give up in a game, is that one of 7 3rd and 12s or is it the only 3rd and 12s and everything else is 3rd and 3? And he made a really interesting comment. I hadn't really thought about it this way, but the idea that you essentially have to scheme once you get to the plus side of the field, that 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 is essentially 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 4, because analytics dictate that you're going to go for it on 4th down anyway. And we've seen that in terms of play calling, right? That guys will be more aggressive, that coaches are willing to take a deep shot on 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4 when maybe they wouldn't have 10 or 15 years ago. And so it's completely changed the situation. And so when he's talking about winning on first down and second down, hey, that's important. Now, one thing that you did have in there is you had points per game allowed, and that didn't really move from 2020 to 2021 there at Southern Miss. The question that I have is going to be, obviously, when he comes into Southern Miss, there's turnover. There's guys you've got to get to buy into your program. There's all the culture stuff that we spent the first half of this episode talking about. Has he already gone through that? Is this essentially a second-year defense for Austin Armstrong, where Patrick Toney took the bullets last year?
Yeah.
And now Armstrong is going to be able to see that turnaround that you see from 2021 to 2022. Again, I think you look at 2021 to 2022, the big difference there was they started getting havoc. They were 4th in the NCAA in sacks, 3rd in tackles for loss, 7th in interceptions there in 2022. They were bad or middle of the road in those stats to start with. The one thing I think you need to watch out for, or at least maybe prepare yourself for, right? You were, during the Napier section, you were talking about expectations. This defense is going to give up some big plays. Yeah. Like Austin Armstrong has given up big plays everywhere he's gone. It's one of the reasons why I was really, really not I was pretty negative about this hire when he first came in, because I looked at it and I said, like sacks and tackles for loss, I think are the wrong stat to look for when you look at truly transcendent defenses. Like the Georgia defenses stop things on the run. They don't give up a ton of big plays, especially rushing. And Armstrong's defenses at Southern Miss have given up a bunch of running plays. They were 98th in 20+ yard rushing plays in 2021 and 74th in 2022. And so you start looking at that and go, okay, well, does that really, how does that translate in terms of where Florida is? Now, Florida was 98th in 2021 and then 100th in 2022 in 20+ yard rushing plays. So you're not talking about a defense that was any better at preventing those big plays. But I think that's the thing, right? Is that if you're going to give up those big plays, you want it to be through the air. You want to limit things on the ground, and you want those 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. And if you get enough of those, you're going to get off the field, even if you're not a transcendent defense. I think that's been the frustration. I mean, I saw in the comments there, somebody was like, it felt like we had 2 third down stops all year. And that's probably true, because it always was 3rd and 2. And just the fact that it was always sitting in that situation meant the defense didn't have much of a shot. And then you have the couple during the game that get converted that are 3rd and long, and just you never get off the field. And that's been a constant now for 3 straight years, and it's going to be up to Armstrong to fix it. But again, I think it's worthwhile to set the expectations. This defense is still going to give up big plays. The way you want to measure it is not, did they just give up a 90-yard touchdown? The way you want to measure it is, have there been 7 3rd and longs in the first half today? And if that's the case, and they've given up 14 points on 2 big shots, I think we got to live with that, because I think that's what this scheme and these players are probably going to get out of things, especially early on.
I'm glad you brought that up. Ocho Gringo on the Gators Breakdown Plus Discord brought up when Southern Miss played Tulane last year. We know how good Tulane was. I think Tulane jumped on like 14-0, like really, really quick, some big plays, and then pretty much shut them out the rest of the game. So maybe adjustments are a good thing for Austin Armstrong as well. We'd love to see some adjustments being made along with that. But also, with that maybe talent deficiency there at Southern Miss, maybe felt like he had to take more risk, and that led to some bigger plays. And maybe with a talent infusion at Florida, then maybe that comes down as well. But Will, I kind of agree with you. As aggressive as he is, there may be some of those big plays that are there. But if you're creating turnovers, if you are a clutch defense, and I think if you are better on 3rd down than what we have seen, then that can translate as well. As you said, giving up big plays is not a death sentence by any means, but where else can you make up for that at, I guess, would be my biggest question.
He's not BSing when he says he wants to hunt. Yeah. Like that has been his MO everywhere he's been. I have zero doubt that there are going to be times. I went back and looked for something. We're putting together a little postscript for the magazine, little update. I went back and looked at the defensive plays. It was a game that Southern Miss played. I think it might even been Louisiana, and every time it was 3rd down, the house was coming. There was never a point where I was like, oh, he sat back in a zone. Like, like they were coming. They were man to man. There was one, like, I think it was the first 3rd down of the game. They had cover 0. They just brought everybody and said, we're going to put our corners out on an island. That's going to happen this year. You're going to see, they're going to challenge Jason Marshall, and they're going to say, you got to make a stop. Like, we need you to high point the ball. You can't allow just a little pop up down the middle of the field to turn into a 50-yard gain. Like, you're going to have to start making those plays, and they're going to challenge those corners to do that. Can those guys live up to it? I think that's going to be a big part of the story of the season. The other part is when you bring cover 0, you want to get to the quarterback. And so if that defensive line is getting a push up front, you can make quarterbacks really uncomfortable if you're getting push up front. So, look, I think there's going to be some times where Florida has the ability to do that just based on talent. I think they're going to be able to scheme some things open that allow them to get to the quarterback. I think, we do our over-under every year, and I think I'm going over sacks depending upon, especially if you set it based on last year's numbers. But
that's true.
But the reality is there are going to be some teams where they just can't get home. And when they can't get home, we're going to see some big plays, and we just need to be prepared for that. Again, I think the issue when people get mad is usually when their expectations don't meet reality. So if you expect this team to give up 4 points a game and never give up any big plays and be the Georgia defense that we've seen over the last, from 2 years ago, you're going to be disappointed. But if you expect a team that's going to give up some big plays, that they're going to leave some guys out on an island, and sometimes that's not going to work out, but you're going to start getting some explosive havoc plays in the backfield, then I think your expectations are in line with what Armstrong is going to want to do. And like I said, like looking at the tape, the hunting, he's not just saying that. Like he's going to come after guys. Third down is going to be a blitz down. Third down is going to be a time where the only time you're not blitzing is when you're trying to trick the quarterback into thinking that you are trying to get him to get rid of the ball early. You get somebody to drop into the zone and you're hoping you get a pick six.
I think if we use the spring game as a barometer, I think it gets kind of put out there. Maybe he blitzed a lot, but some of those, maybe even a lot of those were not blitzes. It was bringing 4 guys. You just didn't know which 4 were coming. He did a pretty good job at disguising, not calling out the dogs. Billy Napier did not in that spring game there. So, so a lot of it will look like blitzes as well, but it might all be coming from one side of the defensive line where, most of the 4 that are coming are all on that left side or all on that right side, kind of using numbers to their advantage on one side and see if we can get to the quarterback. But simulated pressures and creepers, I think we'll see a lot of that.